So, by the way, there has been two more, count them, two more Twitter chapters just today. One I totally teabagged this morning, if you saw any of that, which was about the Schenenberger MD or whatever, the dude, the third tier dude that they have working on this, who's almost entirely, like his job is entirely to just going to regurgitate the New York Post story credulously and just repeat it verbatim and say it's a fact. Why? Because I read it there. Well, it wasn't true there either. Yeah, but that doesn't matter because I read it and then I'm repeating it. Once something is written and then it's repeated, it becomes true. Don't you know? That's how it works. That's how things work. Now, speaking of someone who repeats things and then tries to make them true. Oh, wrong person. This guy doing his best impersonation of an outraged yellow highlighter. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you, and you can take him, Rusty Trombone himself, Russell Brand. We haven't seen him in a little bit. And not because he hasn't been cranking stuff out. It's just so repetitive that it became boring. But this one's repetitive in its own special way. Apparently, according to him, the U.S. has, I think we arranged for the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline so that we could get paid to rebuild it. Which isn't that like one of the old like Republican slams against communism? That their entire economy is based on paying a guy to dig a hole and paying another guy to fill it in? Yeah. So anyways, so this one's, and of course they're all called, "We saw this coming." Like all of his videos are like, you were right. Your paranoid delusion has totally paid off. Almost all of his videos these days are named something along those lines. We knew it. You knew it. It was true the whole time. Da, 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 da. Excuse me. So, and I am feeling better, but I am sounding worse. No. So let's give it a shot. Welcome to the show. Settle in. I almost called it a sketch. This clip is 12 minutes long. I may bail out early if it's just repetitive garbage, but I'm curious about this argument. Let's see.
Oh, that was ages ago. What are you still going on about that for? It's not as if
Sorry. Hold on. By the way, I would like to remind everyone that according to Rusty Trombone, the Nord Stream pipeline explosion was supposed to trigger World War II and we were all going to die in a nuclear explosion. Just for the record.
Remember the Nord Stream pipeline? No, that was ages ago. What are you still going on about that for? It's not as if like now that America and the UK have done a deal to replace the deals that might have existed between Russia and European partners, and the whole reason it was blown up was to create the opportunity for these deals. Stop!
By the way, both of the pipelines and the business around them had stopped because of the war. The pipelines were dead in their use because of the actions of Russia. Which is, by the way, why Russia used a pig with explosives attached to it, not a living pig, a pipeline inspection gadget, dragging explosives into it and blew it up themselves because they didn't want to depressurize the gas that was in it back out their way and explode another factory inside Russia.
Stop thinking. You think too much. Just put on the normal news and shut up.
Also, notice how he turns this ridiculousness into somehow a Americans or the general public, I guess, swath of Western society. We're all sleepwalking through life. We're all just ignorant, and we just buy, without any question what the media sells us, and we just walk around like friggin' zombies because he thinks he stumbled on something.
Hello there, you 6 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this.
Oh, they had to edit something, apparently, because he messed his mic up.
Voyage to truth and freedom, and ultimately, I pray, glory and redemption.
What? All right, look, rock and roll megachurch, Alex Jones, Jesus, knock it off. Get over yourself. You've moved from your living room podcast to a studio they recreated to look like your living room podcast. Grow up.
If you haven't turned on the notification
Yeah, don't let me track you. This part drives me nuts.
bell yet, turn it on right
right now so I can send you emails and you can be notified whenever I'm on, and I can use the notification bell to sell things to you. But corporations.
Now, because YouTube is part of the mainstream media and the algorithm
Oh my God, of course, everyone. It's you and me against the world, baby.
is ultimately against us. We have an amazing story.
The algorithm is ultimately against us. Us. You know, the cult.
For you today, particularly if you have a memory that expands beyond the last couple of months and you haven't been bludgeoned into amnesia by a media that wants you dumb, idiot.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's the thing. You've been bludgeoned. You're dumb, but it's not your fault.
Hypnotic, spellbound, and hypnotized. The Nord Stream pipeline, which, was blown up mysteriously, and Jocko Willink said on this show, Navy SEALs could easily do it.
Jesus Christ. Navy SEALs could easily bench press you. None of them are under your chair. This is what happens when people who are materially incapable of anything start talking about people who are capable of a lot. Hold on a second. Yeah.
Guess what's happened? Since it's been blown up, the US has done a load of gas deals with European...
Yeah, but we don't want to. We're not going to send LNG all the way to Europe on boats, stupid.
Nations. Wow, what an extraordinary coincidence. And why is it not being reported on anywhere in the mainstream?
What are you talking? Oh, God. Why aren't U.S. deals with Europe being talked about at all? Hold on. Let's see. Hold on, I'm waiting for the price gap, or the price cap storylines to get past those. Here you go. This is analysis. U.S. LNG exports to Europe on track to surpass Biden promise. This is from July. That's Reuters, by the way. Thank God for tiny little independent organizations like Reuters to do the stories no one else will do.
Media. They really cared about the Nord Stream pipeline when they said, Putin, he probably did that himself. Putin's blown up that pipeline because he's crazy. He's got Parkinson's. He can't go 5 minutes with shitting down his own trouser leg. He probably shat that Nord Stream pipeline to death.
Okay, this is, by the way, this is his specific tool of like mocking a concept by just overtly getting scatological about those kind of things and kind of stacking a bunch of things, saying that you're ridiculous because you may have understood that the only person that seek to gain in this at all, as far as depressurizing a gas pipeline in the middle of international waters, was Vladimir Putin for material reasons. Geostrategically also using it by accusing other countries of doing it so that they could use it as a reason to attack Ukraine even more, which God knows why they think they'd even need more reasons, because their own news is telling them that they just need to wipe the Ukrainians off the face of the earth. But still, it's nice to have that. It's nice to be able to hip pocket that.
By mistake, that poor fucker. And yes, that does mean that in the future, the European nations will need to get their gas from somewhere else. And
yes, Qatar.
Yes, we have explicitly stated that we would prefer that European nations bought their gas from us. But that still doesn't exempt that
And by the way, no, we haven't.
bloody Putin from the blame. The US is set to double its gas exports to the UK under plans to clamp down on rising living costs by weaning Britain of Russian energy. Weaning? Wasn't that coming out of Putin's breast? He does have breasts, though. I'm afraid he has titmanitis, one of his diseases. Ooh.
See what I mean? It's just this kind of like low-res mockery at the concept. This is what you fill in when you don't actually have any information.
Now, according to British media reports, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is poised to make a gas deal announcement with the United States after the COP27 climate summit.
Just pause for a moment to draw attention to the fact that you can only find this news on the Indian internet.
The United
Yeah, the Indian internet. First of all, Weon's, I've cited them before. Hold on. UK to sign gas deal with US. Let's see. Now I'm gonna I'll obviously have to look for, some sort of weird little indie organization. Yeah, like I don't know, little groups like CNN. UK tries to shore up energy supply with US deal. Britain has agreed a new energy partnership with the United States that aims to end its reliance on Russia and lower soaring energy costs. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced the partnership in a statement on Wednesday. He said the aim was to double the amount of liquefied natural gas the United States exports to Britain compared to the 2021 levels. This will both be good for the UK and European partners as we look to replenish gas storage next year. Under the UK-US Energy Security and Affordability Partnership, the two countries will work to reduce global dependence on Russian energy exports and step up collaboration on energy efficiency, nuclear power, and renewables. The initiative will be overseen by senior officials from both sides. Gee whiz. Am I to understand that elected representatives from two democratic countries are getting together to reach a mutually agreed to deal essentially on gas to lower energy prices for people in the UK and sell something that we have an excess of in the United States rather than support the Russian war machine. Weird.
The United States has promised the whole of European Union of 15 billion cubic meters of LNG this spring, and UK hopes for about 10 billion cubic meters of the supply.
After all the things they said about this war, about how it was a humanitarian...
And by the way, the whole idea that he's like, I'm surprised he didn't just get shocked at how many, 10 billion cubits of something. Hold on one second.
War. After all the things that happened in Iraq, about how they said that was a humanitarian war, how there were weapons of mass destruction, and how we now know that it was part of a...
Hey, fucko. Tap the brakes, asshole. Iraq, by the way, or both the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, people in the United States, myself included, protested against those wars, stood up against them, didn't buy the mainstream media story about yellow cake or any of that fuckery for a long time. And that was an action where the United States, after 9/11, reacted because of who was in charge. And again, it matters who you fucking elect. This asshole thinks it doesn't, but it absolutely does, because if Al Gore had been president, our reaction to 9/11, if it happened at all, because he would have been reading his fucking daily briefs, would have actually been very different. But never mind that fact. But after the fact, when the president that I voted for this time, by the way, got us out of Afghanistan and is retracting us from all these kind of things, this fucker wants you to think that there's somehow a parallel between that and Russia attacking Ukraine in a situation, by the way, that the United States had nothing to do with. I know they want this story about like, oh, they were scaring them with NATO. Yeah, that bullshit. No. Russia did this of their own free will. They chose to attack them. They talk openly on their news about wiping Ukraine off the map. Gone. The people themselves must be either killed or tortured into renouncing their Ukrainian characteristics. I don't know, their genetic lines or whatever the fuck, and just going back to being good Russians and dying in a new Holodomor. That these are somehow parallel automatically. And the idea is that you go back to something that the United States has moved past, that we don't as a group. And one of the things I will say, that post-Iraq war, specifically, one of the most bipartisan things that has come out of that experience is that left to right in the United States, almost everybody calls that a forever war and has no interest in the United States getting involved in it. And it actually has an impact on why we don't have troops in Ukraine to begin with. Never mind the fact that that would be a ratchet up and involve something that could trigger a NATO response and blah, blah, blah. But even beyond that, we're not putting troops there for that specific reason. because of our collective awareness of the fact that Iraq and yellow cake and all that stuff was bullshit, and won't get fooled again.
A plan called the New American Century. After all of that,
Oh my God, he's going back to the PNAC, the things that we were all fucking screaming about, which, by the way, effectively stopped. That's right. The election of Barack Obama was the thing that drew the PNAC's plan for a 7-nation war to a close. Oops. I mean, frankly, Trump tried to jumpstart it again by deepening our involvement in our relationship with Russia in Syria, but it didn't work.
You would think that they would at least wait a minute before building a fucking pipeline to replace the one they blew up.
Okay, first of all, asshat, we're not building a pipeline from fucking New York to the UK. You have to boat this shit over. You have to have facilities on either side that liquefy the natural gas and deliquefy it, you fucking dipshit.
Allegedly.
This move would be considered as UK's step towards independence from Russia.
By the way, the reason Rusty Trombone thinks that the US and the UK are building a pipeline to replace Nord Stream, the reason he believes that is because there was a picture of a pipeline in the video thing that he's looking at, and he's certain it's got to be something the UK and the US have built in the last 2 months.
Russian-linked oil and gas imports amid Ukraine invasion.
That was always the intention, to just take over gas exports from Russia.
Brian.
What was it now? So this is the purpose of us backing Ukraine. Russia attacks Ukraine, but the only reason we are acting like we give a shit, apparently, according to Rusty Trombone, is because we want to shift our sales of quite frankly, of natural gas in its gaseous form through pipelines into Central and South America, which is how you do it, to converting it into a liquefied form and fucking boating it across the sea. Also, by the way, if you'll notice, he'll point out how the volume of the U.S. exports is doubling or something from, I think, out of Czech's notes, dick 2 years ago to a number that sounds enormous but isn't.
Sullivan is live in Rotterdam as part of a week-long series he's doing on Europe's energy crisis.
We're going to talk about specifically liquefied natural gas and the U.S.'s role in, and again, I don't think the word saving Europe or the phrase saving Europe is too strong, Becky, because without U.S. imported natural gas, Europe would be in a far more dire situation.
Not only do they want to hide the true origins of this war,
Wait a minute. What do you mean the true origins of this war? What the fuck is that? Seriously. And keep in mind, remember, we were supposed to, the U.S. blew up the pipeline not so we could sell gas, but so that we could trigger a nuclear war and destroy the Earth. That's what this fucker's sales pitch was, 3 months ago.
not only do they want to allegedly destroy this pipeline and sell us gas that we were previously buying from a competitor, they want...
Oh, from a competitor, that's all. Oh, so are we going to invade Qatar and blow them up too, since they're a competitor? Maybe we're really only against Xinjiang cotton, not because it's slave labor, but because there's cotton growers in the United States, and we want to compete with them, on an unlevel playing field. So we don't want them to just, be able to use slave labor anymore.
To sort of be thanked for it and for the saviors. Well, I don't think it's too strong to say that we are...
Again, just this is kind of like flat mockery. None of it's funny. Because it's so on the nose and doesn't really amount to a fucking hill of beans.
For the new Jesus of gas provision, but instead of lasers, which I believe Jesus used to shoot from his hands, I think I'm right.
All right, again. See what I mean? The concept is mock ad absurdum, and therefore the the concept must be ridiculous because it doesn't merit a quality joke.
Right, I think it says that in the Bible. We shoot liquid gas
And this is coming from a guy who has a fart gun, by the way.
into Europe like Jesus gas milk. I don't think that's too much to say. Rishi Sunak.
Again, this, and by the way, something weird going on with Russell and Rishi Sunak. It could be that the dude's just super rich. I don't think so. Seems to be deeper than that.
WEF, Goldman Sachs, has pledged that the new partnership to boost energy security, efficiency and affordability will cut prices for Britons and ensure the UK's national supply can never again be manipulated by the whims of a failing regime.
Now, he thinks this is funny because he thinks the United States is a failing regime.
Have you seen Joe Biden lately?
Yeah, there you go. Why talk about policy when you can make an ageism joke? Have you seen Joe Biden? Yes, I have actually. He's about to pass one of the like, I think the first budget without a continuing resolution in 7 years?
As part of efforts to drive down the cost of living, the US will aim to export at least 9 to 10 billion cubic metres of liquefied natural gas to UK terminals over the next year, more than doubling the level in 2021.
Now, God forbid you bring up how much liquefied natural gas or natural gas in general the UK uses, period. Should we look it up? Should we try and see? Let's see. How much natural gas UK uses a year? Okay. Gas consumption. Let's see. Gas worldometer. So by the way, here you go, natural gas. They have an 868,000 cubic feet deficit. Say that again. How much was it? 9 to 10 billion cubic meters of liquefied natural gas. And so, cubic, I got to look up in cubic feet, or sorry, cubic meters. Meters. Oh, you're going to love this one. You're going to love it. You're just going to love it. Okay, got it. So the U.S. will aim to export at least 9 to 10 billion cubic meters of liquefied natural gas to the U.S. Oh, my God. The enormity of such a... Oh, I'm sorry. What do we have? The UK consumes somewhere in the order of 80 to 85 billion cubic meters of gas every year. Hold on a second. Yes. Excuse me. Yeah. So, sorry, I left something in the room. Yeah. The U.S. is going to supply somewhere in the order of 8 to 10 billion cubic meters to the U.K. to make up for fuckery. And yes, and how much do they make themselves? What do you think? We back up and look at this shit again? Hold on one second. Let me jump back to here. There you go. They consume 2.5 billion cubic feet, and they produce 1.6 billion cubic feet. So they have a deficit of 886 million cubic feet. And so to make up for that yearly deficit, they need to get it from somewhere else. And better a partner that isn't currently jailing people simply for protesting. Yeah, you got to do a lot of shit. Most of the people who violently attacked cops on January 6th went home. They don't even have fucking ankle bracelets. Meanwhile, ask this jerk how Alexei Navalny is doing.
Firstly, it's not appearing significantly in mainstream media. That already tells you a lot.
That's because it's not a significant amount. And also, and this also, for the record, natural gas prices and natural gas deals don't show up significantly in mainstream media because it's boring. Because it's not a scandal. It's so not a scandal.
No one is making the connection to the Nord Stream pipeline.
Because there isn't one. They already said it's to replace Russian gas. But the reason they're doing it is because Russia's run by violent assholes.
You're entering a phase of amnesia where you just have to
Oh, okay. I see. We've all just forgotten. What have we forgotten? Fill in the gaps.
forget what you saw like a month ago.
What did we see a month ago? You telling us that the U.S., the Navy SEALs must have blown it up? Because they could? Did they? No. Could they? Sure. Well, if somebody can, certainly they would. Look at Russell's sexual history.
Like, oh, sorry about that during the pandemic. We were wrong about that. Sorry, wrong about what? Hey, this war, don't ever say anything that Putin, Russia, that's all the only thing to consider is Putin is an aggressor. Don't think about anything else, otherwise you're being disrespectful to Ukrainian people who are suffering. Oh, right, okay. Hey, right, that pipe.
By the way, and push back, asshole. If that's the argument, if that's what people are saying, you can't push back on anything but that Putin is an aggressor. That's the only acceptable conversation to have, and that, you know, because it's being disrespectful to the Ukrainians. Explain how it isn't. It wouldn't take a second. Give us a full sentence. Tell us how they had it coming, Russell. Tell us how the Wagner Group rape squads are a necessity. Tell us how the mass graves were a product of something that, you know, Ukraine poked the bear by thinking that eventually they might need NATO support to keep Russia out. And even talking about it 12 years ago would lead to Russia building up and building up and building up until they attack like it's a fucking game of Risk. Explain it. If that's your criticism, that the mainstream media will only let you look at it from the point of view that Vladimir Putin is a monster, explain how he isn't, and explain how the Ukrainians deserve it. You fucking coward.
Pipeline. Hey, what happened to that pipeline? Shut up! Don't ask about that. It's just like you're being continually bewildered, bombarded by.
Also, by the way, we're supposed to forget about the pipeline because it's supposed to keep us up at night because it was going to trigger World War III. It didn't. Did it? No.
Information, and then they have the gall to talk about misinformation and disinformation when they are the epicenter of this phenomenon.
Look at this dude. They're an episode. They started all this. Now, back to my whole assertion that the Russians didn't do this, and Vladimir Putin is an innocent victim of all this, and the UK and the US have just been plotting to use Ukraine as a battle zone simply to sign an LNG deal that they could sign anyways.
Rishi Sunak said the partnership will help end Europe's dependence on Russian energy once and for all. How can you sell this as this is a benefit? How can you sell this as anything other than advantageous to the corporate interests that were always set to benefit and whose agenda...
I'll tell you why. Because there are a lot of liquid natural gas and natural gas companies in the entire world. Lots of them. There's South American ones, there's Middle Eastern ones, there's Southeast Asian ones, and there's the North American continent. Like there's several you could get them from. And if at some point any of these groups start fucking with you the way that Russia started fucking with Ukraine or trying to manhandle your economy, you could get out of that deal too. You would leave. You would go, I would rather not buy my oil and gas from people who are currently bragging openly on their television, on their state run, by the way, not, oh my God, the CIA runs CNN bullshit, actively paid for in the budget, openly. The propaganda arm of the Russian military and the fucking government, as if there's a difference, are openly bragging about the fact that they want a genocide of the entire Ukrainian people, and they want to bomb Warsaw and Berlin, and it's about time we nuke all these, and London, where this fucker lives.
agenda was likely pursued from the outset. The very fact that
Likely pursued from the outset. Okay. Hi, dummy. Solutions were actually, of course they were pursued from the outset, because the only other option is continuing to fund Putin's war machine.
there's any energy deals being done at this time at all should tell you that there's more to this war than the mainstream media.
No, it isn't. Everybody knows that Europe was getting an outsized amount of their oil and gas from Russia, and it was a bad idea for a long time. The fact that if there weren't energy deals going on, you'd think the fix was in.
You're reporting. Let me know what you think in the chat.
Yeah, because, he stole this graphic idea from Stephen Crowder.
Let me know what you think in the comments. Citing the war in Ukraine, Mr. Sunak and Mr. Biden said in a joint statement that it is more important than ever for allies to work together to build resilient international systems.
Which is, of course, ridiculous, which is why Rusty Trombone is announcing at the end of this video that he is moving to St. Petersburg.
Who for?
Not Florida, Russia.
Not for you. You're going to be paying for the energy. You're going to be paying over the odds for food. You're not going to be part.
Wait a minute.
Not for you. You're going to be paying for the energy. You're going to be paying over the odds for food. You're not.
I don't know what over the is that English slang, over the odds, like you're going to be paying more for food than you have to. And by the way, again, let's look at the ultimate argument that Rusty Trombone is making here. What is the root of his argument? It is that, sure, there are Wagner Group rape squads, mass graves, Russia invaded Ukraine. But, I mean, if we just let it slide, chicken would be cheaper. That's the argument. I mean, this guy would have been a great member of the Greatest Generation, don't you think? I mean, if we get involved in this whole Poland, Auschwitz-y thing, it's going to drive the price of grain up, innit?
Not going to be participating in the profits. Are energy companies profiting now? Yes or no? You tell me. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. If they're profiting, that means that the scarcity is not the issue. It means the extraction of profit is the issue. President Joe...
By the way, they're all going to make profits. The Russians would make profits, by the way. Hand over fist. These are money-making endeavors. The question is, where do those profits go? Do they go to investors? Do they go to people who own stock in it? Do they go into the communities around them? Do they go in research and development? Or do they pay Prigozhin to roll fresh conscripts in from Russia like Pez dispensers full of corpses, just flicking dead Russians out in front of a place to try and claim Bakhmut?
Joe Biden promised a White House press conference in early February that the US was able to shut down the German-Russian Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline in the Baltic.
By the way, he's also, if you'll notice, jumping around from articles. He does this all the time without referencing them. The graphic changes, and he hopes you just don't give a shit.
Sea if Russia invaded Ukraine. But why take my word for it? Here he is doing it.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Oh, you think because Joe Biden...
By the way, multiple times we have seen Rusty Trombone here mention that, like, when Trump says something that's kind of overtly macho like that, he's like, well, you got to give him credit. He's definitely, like, his bravado is amazing. You got to say, he's got a grip on everything. But Biden goes, we'll be able to do it. That means he was going to blow it up. Not that we can put pressure on the Germans and the rest of Europe is going to back us. But since we're trying to build an alliance right now, just in case these assholes do it, I'd rather not say. But to this dickhead, it means they're going to just, we'll have World War III.
Biden on the television said that they would.
Yes, if you'll notice, he says things out loud, comfortably.
Would blow up the Nord Stream pipe.
No. Nope. Notice the jump.
Joe Biden on the television said that they would blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. Then it did blow up, and then they did do a bunch of energy deals. You thought that meant that the whole thing,
And again, quality programming, ladies and gentlemen.
perhaps the war itself,
This man lives under a monarchy.
was about war and profitability for powerful American corporate interests rather than the humanitarian effort to aid Ukrainian people. Oh, we set up that pipeline, then blew it up, then did those deals as a surprise for your birthday. This is exactly what happened when we tried this in Iraq. We pulled that statue down to cheer you up. When Russia
Right, see that? See the bait?
indeed invaded Ukraine on February 24th, Washington was able to get
Oh, why is that funny? When Russia indeed invaded Ukraine on February 24th, that's funny. Because I'm sure that's somehow he's laughing because that's America's fault. We made him do it. So that we could blow up the pipeline, which we didn't need to do.
get Berlin to suspend the pipeline project that was about to go online, even though it wasn't in Germany's interest. The
Oh, yeah?
pipeline has remained closed ever since.
Yes. A closed pipeline was blown up. And Germany, by the way, before it was blown up, said, we're not going to be using it going forward, period, anyways.
And then was blown up by Putin. But ending the war and lifting the sanctions would lead to the reopening of Nord Stream 2.
Says who?
Prior to the Nord Stream explosion, President Vladimir Putin told a press conference that Russia was ready to resume supplying natural gas to Germany if Germany lifted its economic sanctions against Russia.
Yes, if you refuse to charge us for war crimes, we'll sell you cheap gas. I don't know why anyone morally wouldn't jump at that chance.
Putin said, after all, if they need gas urgently, if things are so bad, just go ahead and lift sanctions against Nord Stream 2 with its 55 billion cubic meters per year. All they have to do is press the button and it will get going.
Yes? Hello? I thought somebody was knocking on the door.
Peace deal would mean Nord Stream 2 would reopen, which would help Germany and Russia, but crush US aims at regime change and making Europe dependent on
Look at this. Would crush U.S. aims at regime change and making Europe dependent on U.S. energy. Okay, first of all, Europe's not dependent on U.S. energy. And as a matter of fact, because they're moving towards renewables over the next decade, the need for that 10 billion cubic meters of gas will evaporate as part of the market. It's going to go away. Now, there will always be a use for that gas because the United States can use it for industrial purposes. They could sell it to South America. They can sell it to Canada. That's not a problem. But at the same time, they can participate in removing one of the worst actors on the world stage from acts of absolute violence, imperialism, and colonialism from the earth. Simply, at least, take away their petty cash.
US energy. Don't you think that that is at least part of this?
No. The United States economy is $26 trillion a year. 26. Do you think LNG payments for what? 3 companies every year that amount to 4% of Northern Europe's usage is a reason for us to just go, oh yeah, fucking let's start a hot war with a nuclear power in the middle of Europe. Are you fucking nuts? This is what happens when someone has lived an entire life free of any physical altercations. This is what happens when your whole life is a cartoon. When you have lived this padded bullshit life where every act of violence you have ever seen in life has been on the other side of a fucking video screen. Where you have never encountered the need for physical strength in your life because you don't have to do any manual labor. You never have. Anybody who did do it in your family, you look at them like it was a fucking story they told you instead of what actually happened. You actually, my dad's an architect. Hardly, I would say, a manual labor, although he works on guitars by hand and it's a specific like eye-hand coordination and quality thing, and it takes hours to do. But it's something he does because he loves it, okay? Love what you do and it won't work a day in your life. That kind of idea. But when my dad started out as an architect, working for a big company, drafting buildings and doing all this other stuff, there was no CAD at that point. So all of his blueprinting had to be done by hand. And I used to, after my dad would come home from work, rub my dad's shoulder and arm because it was literally near frozen from spending all day drafting these ginormous projects and having to do, before they had these large scale printers in offices where you could print the blueprints, making multiple fucking copies of these things. Keep in mind, my dad also, like I said, used to do, he would like rehab classic buildings in Kentucky where I grew up. And I've told you guys a couple of times that one of the buildings that he worked on required square nails because they were building the building back using the original like wood and how they treated it and tried to get it as close to the original building as possible. So my dad and I sat in the backyard at my house in front of a fire with a giant pot full of lead, pouring and steel and pouring square nails. Literally a hashed out thing with square nails in it, pouring this molten metal into it and sealing it and then dropping them into a bucket and making more. And we made hundreds of those fucking things. And my dad would have like these burns on the side of his hand just from picking up the pot and doing it over and over and over again. For fuck's sake. This, like, the damage that happens to people in real life, just in their normal interactions, the closest this asshole has ever gotten to that was catching his like $900 jacket in his fucking car door.
Going on here. Do you really believe that at the core of this issue is the tyranny of Putin? And
yes. Yeah. I do. And not, by the way, because I blindly am an amnesiac who fucking follows whatever the shit people tell me. It's because the fucking Russian accounts on Telegram are fucking bragging about it. These are they. Proud of hitting these civilian targets. Proud of it. Dude, remember how horrified a lot of us were when you'd hear people on social media back in the day around the Iraq War, or just people calling in to stations saying we need to, nuke Iraq back to the Stone Age, or we need to turn the Middle East to glass. Remember that shit? Let me know in the chat. Give it a comment below if you remember people saying shit like that during the Iraq War, the beginning of the Iraq War. Remember that? Post 9/11? Fucking remember that? You guys, let me know in the chat. Guys, remember that? Like, we saw those quotes constantly. You know what the difference was? As much as we look at, the kind of shit talk like that that Tucker Carlson and those assholes say these days, no, we didn't see Dan Rather or fucking Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or even, by the way, Fox and Friends going on and saying, we need to nuke the Middle East, all of it, back to the Stone Age. Turn all the sand to glass. Yeah, Peter Jennings, none of that shit. Like, we were pissed that people credulously carried the story of the yellow cake thing. But even then, yeah, bomb Iran, like the joke that came out of McCain. The general feeling was, when he did that shit, was outrage. It was one of the reasons why he lost against Barack Obama. John McCain, one of the reasons he lost the presidency, never became president, beside the fact that he picked or allowed to have picked for him Sarah Palin, which was a fucking embarrassment, was the fact that he did that bomb Iran thing. And he joked wantonly about the massive destruction of Iran for, just flat out, just nuke the shit, right? Let me explain something to you. Right now, on Russian state television, and on every channel that's allowed to air in Russia, They're saying that about Ukraine, the United States, Berlin, and London, where this asshole lives. Like, they're not even, like, he was, McCain, when he did it, it was kind of like this half-assed joke. He kind of did it at any rate. Remember that? Remember when he was like, bomb, 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 at any rate. He just kind of threw it away. It was like an inside Senate joke amongst Republicans that got out, and he was like, oh, fuck. And he couldn't put it back in the toothpaste tube. Putin clears everything on Russian state TV. Solovyev's show, Simonyan, what's her name? The woman he just gave a word of honor to, the woman who's suggesting that we need to nuke Berlin because they won't buy gas. Look, this is about, you talk about fucking deals between countries to buy and sell shit. If the United States is like, hey, you might want to buy gas from us, you could probably get it from Qatar, but we'll cut you a nice deal, and our companies will, we'll subsidize it with, taxpayer money, but we'll get it moving in there, and it'll be good for us and good for you, whatever. Meanwhile, the Russian deal is, if you stop buying our gas, we basically should just nuke you. Now, that isn't covered in the mainstream media. Like, Julia Davis will cover stuff. It'll show up on Twitter. The Daily Beast will occasionally carry an article from Julia Davis about this, but it's not on the front page or on CNN 24/7, even though the equivalent of Laura Ingraham on Russian state television has said we need to nuke Germany for not buying our gas. And that's not, you're not seeing that all over the place. Why is the mainstream media hiding this? Oh, fuck you.
And helping Ukrainian people. Helping Ukrainian people is the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah? Define the help then. Maybe, what we need though, but helping them sometimes might just, let the rape happen. Maybe a child could be born of it. It's maybe the Texas legal folks who think that there shouldn't be an exception in the case of rape and incest, and maybe they're right about this. Maybe we're helping the Ukrainians. Maybe we're raising their birth rate. Now, they kill the women afterwards, so probably not.
If indeed Putin is a tyrant, I imagine that he is.
You imagine? Do you? I didn't even know you had an imagination. This all just seems like mechanical decisions to make money off of clickbait and horror.
Then of course that is a bad thing. But
of course, if he's a tyrant, that's of course a bad thing. But look at this sales of gas between two countries. Really, this is the false equivalency by Russell D. Brand. This is it. This is what he's thinking. Like, there's this, and they're both the same. One guy is paying mercenaries and convicts to murder civilians and is spending most of his munitions on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine with the stated goal of eliminating them from the earth and seizing their land. And the other is, there might be a profit between gas companies. Yeah. Talk about the lesser of two evils. Jesus.
Do you not think that these pieces of information, him saying that...
No, I don't.
The pipeline, do you think that this is all irrelevant? Do you think...
Yes. I think it is ancillary to the circumstance at hand. Let me show you something. All right. After most Americans, if you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to have it Monday morning before 9 a.m. Just letting you know. And that's when most of them happen. Doesn't mean statistically that's when the majority of them happen. It's when that's the time of the week when the most happen at once. It's not when the majority happen. But you can read the statistic in either direction and freak yourself out. After a story about heart attacks, for example, or cardiovascular disease in the United States, there are several things that happen. The sales of defibrillators go up. The sales of statins go up. And people start exercising and eating a little better. but it's hardly big organic kale is manipulating the situation just to cause a bunch of heart attacks so they can sell kale fucking smoothies. Don't you think that's part of it? I mean, big kale is always making money off of the number one killer of Americans. And I'm not saying that heart attacks are good. I'm just saying that, you see what I mean?
I think that all of these economic interests being advantaged, whether it's the military-industrial complex or energy companies, is a sort of an inadvertent consequence of this.
Yeah, I guess you should talk to Putin. He's encouraging all the wrong people by just attacking. If he hadn't done this, all these awful oil and gas companies wouldn't be selling oil and gas to different customers.
Conflict. Oh wow, God, we were just doing the right thing, helping Ukrainian people, and look, all this stuff happened. Who do you think it is running this war? Willy Wonka? For
All right, I don't even know what the fuck that's supposed to mean.
decades, the US opposed European projects to receive energy from Russia.
Yeah, gee, I wonder why. Could it be the enormous kleptocracy and the fact that a guy who makes $146,000 US, according to what his wages are as president, has amassed the largest fortune of any single person? By the way, bigger than Elon Musk's now, I might add. At $200 billion net worth, has a $25 million house in Sochi alone, multi-million-dollar yachts and vacation homes and all this stuff. $146,000 a year. Also, killed people not far from Russell's house. Yeah, openly admitted it. Had him murdered right on the street. Proud of it. Same thing in, what was the name of that other country that they were just concerned about? Germany.
It wants Europe to buy more expensive US oil and gas.
Why is it more expensive? Oh, because there are more environmental regulations, because we take better care of the space that we use, whereas in Russia, they don't give a shit. Super cheap.
Here's Condoleezza Rice speaking in 2014.
I also understand that one of the complications is the Europeans, who are very dependent on the Russians for...
By the way, anybody remember what had happened in 2014? Anybody remember what the Russians did in 2014? Does this ring any bells?
Energy supply and business relationships. Now we need to have tougher sanctions, and I'm afraid at some point this is going to probably have to involve oil and gas. The Russian economy is vulnerable. 80% of Russian exports are in oil, gas, and minerals. Over the long run, you simply want to change the structure of energy dependence.
You want to change that structure by blowing it up.
You want...
Again, what? Keep in mind, what is Russia? What is Russia? Look, what is Russell? Russell. I'll just call him that from now on. What is Russell arguing? Russell arguing here? What's he arguing here? Russia is an innocent victim. That they simply had their business model blown up.
To depend more on the North American energy platform, the tremendous bounty.
By the way, notice she said North American, not American. So that includes Canada and to some degree Mexican natural gas.
Of oil and gas that we're finding in North America. You want to have pipelines that don't go through Ukraine and Russia.
But there is a pipeline going through Ukraine and Russia. Not anymore, there isn't.
For years.
Yeah, there is.
We've tried to get the Europeans.
By the way, does this asshole think the Nord Stream pipeline went through Ukraine? So does it... How does this work? Does his producer provide him with what he can read, and he's not supposed to read any further because it'll fuck his narrative into a cocked hat? Is that how it works?
To be interested in different pipeline routes. It's time to do that. And so some of this is simply acting.
By the way, which is also Northern European routes as well. Yeah. Those horrible countries like Sweden and Norway. You know, countries that American left-leaning politicians and voters really have learned to hate over time for their social safety nets, which are largely, by the way, based on the revenue from oil and gas. They've just better managed them than, say, Venezuela has.
Acting in a war kind of thing? Oh, God.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah. In 2014, we made Russia seize Crimea as a predicate so that they could think it would be okay to destroy Everyone in Ukraine. Like, this argument is so fucking petty.
No, wait, is that what you thought? Is that what it sounded like? A 2019 Pentagon-funded study from the RAND Corporation on how best to exploit Russia's economic, political and military vulnerabilities and anxieties, which is a nasty thing to have done anyway, included a recommendation
Is it?
to reduce Russian...
Considering they literally attacked Georgia and have, during the preceding decade, and have been moving the barrier, the border of where they had seized territory by like yards every couple of months, pushing farmers and other people out of the way with men with guns, just slowly but creeping until they crossed the pipeline that was going from the straight across into, I believe, Hungary through Georgia, so that they could claim transit fees. And if they wanted to, shut it off. Increasing the anxiety of Southern Europeans.
Natural gas exports and hinder pipeline expansions. The study noted that a first step would involve stopping Nord Stream 2 and that natural gas from the United States and Australia could provide...
The Australians, that's it. Now I get it. They're the people behind the whole thing. It's just an Australian plot.
A substitute. This RAND study also prophetically recommended providing more US military equipment and advice to Ukraine in order to lead Russia to increase its direct involvement in the conflict and the price it pays for it, even though it acknowledged that Russia might respond by mounting a new offensive and seizing more Ukrainian territory. Now, I don't know who participated in this RAND report in 2019.
Yeah, why even look it up? And sorry.
But isn't this...
Hold on. RAND 2019 study, Russian oil, gas, Ukraine, I guess. April 24th, 2019. You can download the whole thing right there. There's a PDF file. Come on. By the way, James Dobbins, Raphael Cohen, Nathan Chandler, Brian Frederick, Edward Geist, Paul DeLuca, Forrest Morgan, Howard J. Schatz, and Brent Williams. That's who participated in this report. It took me a second and a half. Again, I submit to you that literally Russell's producer knows he can just corral Russell's ignorance simply by finding these documents for him and then highlighting the part he's supposed to read and telling him read no further. We encourage you to explore this research brief and the full report as it is that it is based on. However, because Russia's state media and titles and individuals sympathetic to Putin's decision to invade Ukraine have mischaracterized this research in recent weeks. Oh, look at that. People sympathetic to Putin's decision to invade Ukraine have mischaracterized this research in recent weeks. We also encourage you to explore this helpful resource on Russia's firehouse of falsehood approach to propaganda and our research on truth decay. Oh, Russell, do you feel seen, fucker? Which is a phenomenon that is driven in part by the spreading of disinformation. The maxim that Russia is never so strong nor so weak as it appears remains as true as the current century as it was in the 19th and 20th. This was drafted, let's see, availability web only, document number, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. I'm going to drag this over here real quick, if I may. I don't know what, by the way, say that again, fuckhead.
Territory. Now, I don't know who participated in this RAND report in 2019, but is it...
You don't. You don't, do you? So you didn't even look at the summary. This brief summarizes a report that comprehensively examines nonviolent, cost-imposing options that the United States and its allies could pursue across economic, political, and military areas to stress overextend and unbalance Russia's economy and armed forces and the regime's political standing at home and abroad. Some of the options examined are clearly more promising than others, but any would need to be evaluated in terms of the overall U.S. strategy for dealing with Russia, which neither the report nor this brief has attempted to do. Also, written in 2019 after Russia seized Crimea. 5 years later and going, are they going to stop there? Apparently not.
Isn't this just like exactly what's happened? The Obama administration opposed the pipeline. As part of the major sanctions package against Russia in 2017, the Trump administration began sanctioning any company doing work on the pipeline. The move generated outrage in Germany, where many saw it as an attempt to meddle with European markets. In 2019, the US implemented more sanctions on the project. Upon coming into office...
By the way, who was president during that period? Because Russell's a big Trump fan. He believes it's strength. Joe Biden's, weak and feckless. If he does the same thing that Obama did or even Trump did, it's just because it's an accident.
Office, President Joe Biden made opposition to the pipeline one of his administration's top priorities. Oh, on the news it was all about helping people and making Saudi Arabia a pariah. Well, at least that's one promise he has delivered on. Well done, Joe. During his
As old guy jokes.
confirmation hearings in 2021, Secretary of State Antony Blinken told Congress he was determined to do whatever I can to prevent Nord Stream 2 being completed. Months later,
Yeah, Secretary of State.
the State Department reiterated that any entity involved in the Nord Stream 2 pipeline risks US sanctions and should immediately abandon work on the pipeline.
Yeah, why would they bother to do that? Why wouldn't they just let American companies make all the money they can since they're just going to blow it up later? Why even bother? Why, if it's all about profits for American companies, why didn't they just let them do the work? Just go, hey, by the way, you should set your insurance to expire around this date because we're going to blow it up. Why would they stop anyone from doing any of the work if they're getting paid for it if they're just going to destroy it? Who gives a shit? Talk about digging a hole and paying somebody to fill it in.
As Russia was gathering troops at Ukraine's border at the beginning of this year,
What? I'm sorry, what were they doing? Huh. Why were they doing that, Russell?
US administration officials issued threats against the pipeline's operation in the event of a Russian invasion.
Right. And the Germans went, yeah, we're gonna move away from it as well if they do that. And they ultimately did. Before it was blown up.
In January, Under-Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, one of the main players during the 2014 maiden coup in Ukraine.
Okay, Maidan coup, the Euromaidan coup specifically, and it wasn't a coup. This is the storyline we hear from Caitlin Johnson. This is the storyline we hear from Jimmy Dore all the time. Aaron Mate sells this idea that the coup, the United States destabilized and put Nazis in charge. That's why they have a Jewish president now that they elected after completely fair elections for the last two cycles. And we got rid of, Yanukovych, the guy who was working with Paul fucking Manafort.
Ukraine issued a stern warning against the pipeline. If Russia invades one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
Right. They're not afraid to sanction Germany is the point. That's what it was about. By the way, will not move forward is very different than will get bombed.
So, there you are. A simple,
There you are. It's just a story I made up in my fucking head.
complicated narrative that doesn't involve sabotage, espionage, long-term energy goals, and potentially a war that's being used to advance economic interests rather than humanitarian ones. We know how our governments behave, right? And we know how...
No, we don't. And if we have any question about it, we're not going to fucking you for this nonsense.
our media behaves.
Get more bots. By the way, is there a rifle pointed at you during this? What the fuck is that?
Government would never do that, and if they...
Is a shotgun mic? Nice quality. It's good. Maybe hang it next time. Point it at your. Maybe he keeps turning his head away from it when he goes to read, and they had to put it on desk level.
Surely our media will report on it, right? So there's absolutely...
Well, surely our media would report on what the Wagner Group is doing. No? You don't care?
nothing to worry about in spite of this overwhelming, academically underwritten evidence, and even people involved in the conflict directly saying they would do what eventually happened. So,
no, they didn't. This is almost done, thank God. But can we just clarify one thing? Nowhere in this do people talking about economic sanctions, even against an ally, in the case of Germany, shutting down this pipeline, or sanctioning the oil and gas sales to Europe if you want to do deals with the United States, with the European countries that aren't on board who don't give a shit that Russia is murdering people hand over fist in 3 countries at once. Don't even bother. I would love to sit there while this asshole looks at the stories coming out of Somalia about the Wagner Group. And I don't mean from the American press. I would insist that he only look at reports from locals to see what the Wagner Group did in Somalia to pregnant women. I'd love to sit here and have that fucker read that out loud to me. But never mind the fact that you've got, Victoria Nuland and the president and Blinken saying, yeah, that pipeline's got to go. Being an admission that they would blow it up. When Russia would, by the way, just go, all right, we can probably trigger these assholes to come to our defense if we just blow it up ourselves, and it's never going to work again because Germany has already said they're not going to use it. It is a dead pipeline. It is useless, and it is full of gas. And the only way to get the gas out of it, and so that it's not just a giant stick of dynamite attached to our St. Petersburg facility, is to vent it in the middle of the ocean. What an asshole.
So, nothing to worry about. If you enjoyed this video...
I did not. I did not enjoy this video. I enjoyed my commentary on it because few people have the patience to go through one of Russell's videos all the way through as he presents them and knock this shit down as it comes up. This is one of the most pathetic takes on any of this stuff you will ever see. Russell Brand has one of the most intellectually lazy and morally corrupt views of this circumstance I have ever seen. And the only thing that makes it worth talking about sometimes is the fact that he labors under the illusion, or wants his viewers to labor under the illusion, I guess more aptly, that he actually is coming from some sort of position of goodness or philosophical purity or honesty, for fuck's sake. When nothing could be further from the truth. Every video that I see Russell do, and I've seen more of them than we do on this channel because I keep tabs on these assholes. Every video he puts up is it is Jim Jones level manipulation of a fucking sponge-headed crowd that laps it up. In theory, I don't even know that that's true. His viewers may largely be bots at this point. And the idea is just float this shit and buoy it up. And so, it's not like he's making a fucking distinction. You think this asshole goes through and looks at his analytics and where they come from and says, oh, good, I'm reaching the right people. Of course not. But hey, what the fuck do I know? He's got 6 million followers and I've only got about 45,000. That would make him, by the way, on the ladder of mainstream versus independent, I'm well on more independent than he is at this point. And nobody's telling me what to say. And I'm not editing any of my shit. That's for goddamn sure. When I do these clips of him, as long as they may, it may take me sometimes because there's so many lies in them. I'm not having a fucking editor chopping shit out anytime I say something that it goes a bit too far to keep me on the mainstream media of YouTube. I don't have to. So I'm not talking out of my ass or not backing shit up by reading selective readings intentionally to manipulate you. Most of the stuff, and you'll know this, most of the stuff I bring up as references are directly related to the stuff that either the people I'm doing clips about cite themselves or reference, in adjunct by saying the person's name or some sort of abstract. A lot of times they don't even bother to put the whole fucking thing up, knowing you won't go digging, because why would you? It's a waste of fucking time. You know they're full of shit. But I'll do it so you can go, you know what? I've seen somebody actually look past this lie, and it's not just a lie. It's an active manipulation. And that's the business this asshole is in. Russell Brand is a propaganda minister of his own little online fiefdom. And beyond the fact that he's an ignorant asshole, period, the fact that he manipulates his viewers into this end times level panic all the fucking time, and then has the fucking nerve to lead meditation moments at his live events, like he's some sort of like fucking crackhead Marianne Williamson. is gross. Other than that, I have no opinion. You're watching House Sparks Mega Worldwide. That was a lot. That was a lot. We haven't covered him in a while. We haven't covered Rusty Trombone in a while. Because, quite frankly, it's the same shit every time. And it's getting worse.